Is your workspace like mine? Are you thinking about building a welding table? Don't. Welcome to Design Build Workshop. If you're passionate about making things with your own hands and have the desire to learn new and creative projects, this is the place for you. My goal is to boost confidence and inspire creativity. Let's get building. I don't know about you, but I work with a lot of materials. Wood, steel, non-ferrous metals, leather, glass, polycarbonate, the list goes on. With the space I have, I can't afford a one-trick pony, so I'm building a fixture table. This table ended up measuring 38 by 72. Now that may sound pretty large for a small space, but to give you some context, when I was working full-time as a blacksmith, my layout table was 6 feet by 12 feet and 1¼ inches thick. For my subscribers, if you would like a free plan set for this table, just let me know in the comments. As always, when we start the design of a project, we've got to consider our constraints. My workspace is the size of a thimble, so my first constraint will be the overall size of the table while still being functional. So I'll need to consider space around the table as well, so I can work from all 4 sides. I work by myself, so a solid steel tabletop is going to be out of the question, as I just couldn't manipulate it by myself. I want the table to function beyond just being a welding table. I want to incorporate a fixturing system into the build to allow me to fabricate multiples without deviation. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, is the budget. I like to keep my build as inexpensive as possible. I lucked out on the tubing for this build because I knew someone that was trying to get rid of some scrap tube, all cut to the same length. It's a little lighter than I'd like for this build, but it'll work. Based on that, we'll have to figure out what we need for the build. I'll use the tubing for the frame, heavy bar stock for the tabletop, some angle iron for mounting the top to the base, some 1/4 screws and nuts, a welder, a drill, and drill bits, and a 1/2 by 13 tap. I'm really interested to hear what you have done or are thinking about doing for your build space, so let me know in the comments. Because I'm building the frame from discarded tubing, I've got to make some compromises. All the tube I have is 34 inches long, so the longer side of the table will be butt jointed. Normally, I would want to use a single length of tube for this, but don't look a gift horse in the mouth. One of the best tips I can give you to get solid welds is to clean the area to be joined. Remove oil, rust, etc. Use a wire brush, a degreaser, and keep the weld area dry. In the model, I didn't have any 45-degree supports shown, but as you can see, they're included in the actual table. These are a must for rigidity and to prevent racking. You'll notice most of the pieces I build are modular, or should I say they can be modified. For this table, I decided from the design phase that the top of the table would be able to transform in any way I wanted. I used angle iron to bolt through the tubing and would also anchor the top plates. This will allow me to remove plates if I need to, and will make it a lot easier to move if I finally build a proper studio. All right, so here's the tubing I was talking about. It's 1x2, it's a thin wall. It's not crazy thin, but it's a lot thinner than what I would pick to normally build a welding table. But because this table's not all that big, and I had plenty of this, and it was free, this was, good enough way to go. The table's held up for 3 years now. I haven't had any issues with it. I don't move it, it's not on casters. I don't like moving welding tables around. I would rather have them be stationary. So I know this one's is level and flat, and I know where it's at right now. It's nice and flat. So I just prefer to leave it alone. As far as moving it later, it's one of the reasons I went with the slat tops, is that I can take this completely apart, and the base is not all that heavy. The top is actually the heaviest part. It's 1/2 by 5 bar stock. I had this cut at the supplier to length, so that way I didn't have to do it. It was a little heavy on my car when I was bringing it home, but it's absolutely just fine. The 1/2 inch holes are drilled half 13. They're tapped half 13. The end holes here are countersunk, and that's how they're held in place through this angle iron along the edge here. Got fixturing that's been going on, and I will talk about that in another video to kind of show you how that was developed. The first step in building the top is mounting the angle iron and making sure that both sides are on the same plane or parallel. I decided to attach the angle mechanically with bolts rather than welding it, as the material thicknesses are quite different. With the angle set in place, we need to attach the top. As I stated earlier, I bought 1/2x5 bar stock and had it cut the length from the distributor. I'm using a 1-inch spacer between the top pieces so I can fit C-clamps between the plates to hold items down. I'm drilling 2 5/16 holes through the end of each plate to secure to the angle iron and countersinking them so that the bolt head will be below the surface. I'm drilling all the holes on my rigid drill press. Another benefit of building the top this way is that I can do all my fixture drilling with a standard drill press and don't have to rent a magnetic drill. For the fixture system, I'm drilling 6 evenly spaced 27/64 holes to be tapped for half 13. The rule of thumb for tapped holes is to go down 3 drill sizes for the bolt size you're using. All that's left is to clamp the top pieces in place, transfer the mounting holes to the angle iron, and drill the holes in the angle for mounting. The half 13 holes in the plates are for the fixturing system I'm using for the table. There are a lot of systems out there, but they are very expensive. Because I like doing things myself and I don't like spending tons of cash, I decided to design my own system. 1/2-inch threaded rod is the base of my system. Threaded rod, or all thread, is relatively inexpensive and is readily available in 3-foot lengths. Cut the all thread to various lengths to then thread into the tabletop to use as an anchor to hold projects in place. I'll cover the rest of the fixture system in an upcoming video. So first thing I'll say, this table is never this clean. But this will kind of give you an idea of what I was talking about when I'm talking about the fixturing system. So it's just 1/2-inch rod, totally threaded. All I've got to do is screw these in to the tapped holes. And then, they're nice and solid. If it's wiggling around at all, like so, I can just tighten this nut down. If I really need to have that be nice and solid, so that'll stay in place. It's also set up with the slat system so that I can get clamps in here easy, hold something down. I've got it set up so it's wide enough to get my C-clamps in here, and then I can go ahead and tighten those down. Also, if I need to put a piece of machinery in here, I can just take these smaller pieces, these smaller bolts, thread this in here, got my T-wrench, and just crank that down. And then hold down whatever I want to set up on here. Because I also have got it set up so that I can remove the slats if I've got some kind of odd piece that I need to have something coming up from the floor or something that has to hang down, I can do that in here as well. That about ends this episode of Design Build Workshop. Please like and subscribe if you like this content. Hope to see you next week.